Hi, and welcome to Coffee Not Found, the podcast for all things gamification in marketing, education, and life. Today is an unusual one. We thought we would do a bit of a whiteboard exercise and kind of show you the process that goes into maybe gamifying an experience at a basic level, at least. I will say in advance, I apologize for my lack of artistic ability, but this is why we have graphic artists, and I'm not one. We're going to do a project that we did already because it just makes more sense. We can kind of go through the process we went into. We've mentioned it a couple of times. We built a game called the Energy Ambassador for Energy Team, a company here in Ireland. And basically the whole idea was we were doing education of people in the community onto renewable energy. And this was the kind of the first remit that we got. Now, when we spoke kind of in great detail with the client, we found there were a couple of things. One, when you go out into a community and you say you're presenting in like a town hall environment, engagement is quite difficult. So everybody has their mobile phones, they're checking their Facebook, they're sending text messages, telling people to put the dinner on, they'll be home soon. You've got different demographics as well. So like you could have a farmer on one side of the room, a shopkeeper, and like an IT guy in the middle. And so trying to address everybody in the room and keep everybody entertained and interested is quite a difficult process. The other aspect as well is because the second phase of Energy Team's proposals was that you were getting them to adopt a community renovation project. So in other words, you were saying, look, some people might want to get solar panels, some people might want to get an electric source heat pump. Some people, the best option would actually be a new wood pellet burner. So people would be open to different aspects of it based on what they had seen in the training. So we looked at this, and then we looked at the other aspect from our perspective, which is the technical one. So we knew that it had to be deliverable in a town hall in any location. So in other words, we couldn't make it web-based because there's no guarantee that you'll get reception or be able to offer Wi-Fi. We had to control the environment in which it was, because what we didn't want was when a person went out to do the training, that half their time was spent doing technical support. So in other words, if we were going to use devices for the training or to gamify it, we had to control all devices. And we also wanted to make it like as quick as possible to get up and running. So in other words, when you go out on site, that you can set up, deliver the training and leave again. So we kind of had it listed out. So we had learning outcomes, we had their interest level, and follow-up. So this is like what aspect, if any, that these people would be looking to go with. From our perspective, we wanted to control the environment. So these are the four things that kind of we thought were the most important for the remit. The next thing for us then was how to implement those. So we got an idea on budget, and we knew what we could work with hardware. So what we decided to go with from our perspective was we wanted to issue everybody with handhelds. So the best handhelds that we wanted, we had an Android tablet. We went with tablet for a couple of reasons. Again, going back to the demographics. The oldest person in our test audience was, I think, 75. So a smaller device just wasn't on. You wanted something big and clunky that you could kind of get a hold of. And then at the front of the room, while we could have gone with Android, we felt that because we want to output a report at the end of each training, we went with a PC. So the PC was like a touch screen, and that allowed the person giving the training to interact with it and touch buttons. When we were gamifying the experience, we thought, right, okay, so we needed, again, if you're gamifying something for like a more technically savvy environment, you might maybe do a bit more. And this might seem a little bit basic, but again, it's knowing your audience. So the first thing we wanted to do was allow everybody to very quickly get set up so that they didn't lose interest. So we minimized absolutely the opening sequence of the game to being just enter your name and basically away you go. You could also put in an email address in the first iteration of what we did, but we actually removed that and we moved it to the end, and I'll kind of show you why. So basically we had this setup. When the user logged in, the user would get to create a profile. So again, first name and last name, and basically that would form their kind of username for the game. And we assigned them all. We created 20 because that was the class size we were kind of issued to expect. they were issued with an emoji style character that was theirs and only theirs. So they were always quite funny characters. There were always a bit of interaction, a bit of fun. Because the energy ambassadors, the whole idea was that you were supposed to become the ambassador for energy in your community. We thought the best thing for a winner's perspective would be that you would be the energy ambassador. So we created a leaderboard system, and basically the aim was to be the energy ambassador. For scoring, we wanted to get across the idea that all this was, okay, you're looking, it's great, the environment, and that's what the aim of the energy ambassadors is to help the environment. But we all know ourselves, the vast majority of people swap or switch their heating and stuff for cost savings. So what we did was we had everybody, we thought, what's the average electricity bill? It's about €200. So everybody started with €200. And the better you were at the game, the more money you saved. So I think if you got a question right, I think if you got it totally right, it was minus 15. So it's 1, 2. All questions were kind of weighted. Most questions are weighted. So you could save a tenner, a fiver, or 0 if you got it absolutely wrong. So again, we were getting always, in the back of their minds, we want people thinking, geez, I'm saving money. So that keeps it interesting as well. So we had questions throughout the process. So going back to the interest level and the follow-up, not only were we looking to keep them engaged and get them learning, we also wanted to identify what they should be approached for. So, after the training, in the old days, you could ring up and say, well, look, we have these 5 options, and it gets complicated and people lose interest. So what we had 2 different types of questions. We had scoring questions, which led to this, and we also had buying signals questions. So in other words, what are you showing an interest in? So the first couple of questions were scene setters. So we got things like average electricity bill. Other ones were, what do you have already? So do you have solar? Do you have oil? Do you have solid fuel? And basically, we then were able to create a matrix of these people as to what they had already. And so somebody whose average electricity bill was €400 versus someone whose average was 200 and already had solar. Actually, if they had solar, it would probably be less, but it doesn't matter. And these guys here had solid. Well, you knew these guys were the prime candidates to get something in, and they'd be the most receptive to it, because you'd be able to say, well, look, we can cut this bill quite a lot. So we had all these stored in the background, and then at the end of the game and the end of the presentation, the end users actually come out with a report of who to apply or who to source first as a sales lead and what to try and sell them. So should we go with electric source heat pump? Did they answer those questions? Were they more interested in the questioning on the electric source over the solar panel? Do they live in an apartment? That kind of stuff. So that all was coming through. So this answered the client's issues, and it kept the people in the training more interested. The last thing for us then was kind of watching that follow through, and at the end, basically, the winning emoji dances around on the screen and is all happy. We ran this in tests with community groups. As I said, the first one, there was a 75-year-old retired guard or police officer, and there was a 5-year-old there with his parents. So it was a wide demographic. Now, funnily enough, the 5-year-old had no interest in buying solar panels, go figure, but everybody stayed engaged. The actual information that came back was exactly what they were looking for. We made a couple of tweaks on the questions to make them a little bit more understandable, but it worked nearly first time, which was fantastic for us. The second phase of this, which we're going to get into in the next couple of weeks in the company. So while this was being delivered, this screen was just in use for the game, and on a separate area then we had the presentations of people doing the training that the questions were about. Worked well, but there were a couple of things that were found. So the first thing was it had to be the same person delivering the training that kind of knew the lay of the land in terms of what questions were coming up. And if, for example, you were delivering the training and you accidentally forgot to mention something about solar panels and the question was about solar panels, it made it a little bit difficult. So what we've done is, and we actually had it built into the first one, but we didn't really use it. We've built the actual educational part into the game as well. So in between game questions is actually a presentation. So you display the video, the bullet points, any any sound resources that are involved. So anyone can deliver the training because the training itself actually answers and follows a set pattern. It means you can send them out, and as long as the tablet devices and the PC are in the one area, they can play. The other thing we did with these as well is we created a Wi-Fi network that sits on the back of the PC. So no matter where they go, they're all talking to the same network. It just meant everything worked nice. You didn't go out and have to get the Wi-Fi key off of somebody either to get them all traveling. So because this is traveling all over Ireland now, delivering training in, I think, all four corners of Ireland at this stage have gotten training delivered with this system. So we just meant that if you control the whole environment, that's it. As I say, it seemed very simple, but it actually addressed everything that the client needed, and it allowed everybody be engaged. And actually, the nice thing about this, I suppose, is that at the end of the day, they're being delivered something useful. And yeah, I think I mentioned, the reason we did ask for the email address at the end is because at the end we ask, what would you like to follow up on? What extra information? So yeah, that's us. This has been Coffee Not Found. Check us out on our social channels at coffeenotfound.com. And thanks very much.